Hello, my name is Bussho, and I'm reading Master Dōgen's Shōbōgenzō. And we've started the second book with Bussho, Buddha Nature, halfway through paragraph 30. The fifth patriarch says, the Buddha nature is emptiness, so we call it being without. This clearly expresses that emptiness is not non-existence. To express that the Buddha nature is emptiness, we do not say it is a half a pound and we do not say it is 8 ounces, but we use the words being without. We do not call it emptiness because it is void, and we do not call it being without because it does not exist. Because the Buddha nature is emptiness, we call it being without. So real instances of being without are the standard for expressing emptiness. And emptiness has the power to express being without. This emptiness is beyond the emptiness of matter is just emptiness. At the same time, matter is just emptiness describes neither matter being forcibly made into emptiness, nor emptiness being divided up to produce matter. It may describe emptiness in which emptiness is just emptiness. Emptiness in which emptiness is just emptiness describes one stone in space. This being so, the fourth patriarch and the fifth patriarch pose questions and make assertions about the Buddha nature being without, about the Buddha nature as emptiness, and about the Buddha nature as existence. When the sixth patriarch in China, Zen Master Daikan of Sokai Zen Mountain, first visited Obai Zan Mountain, the fifth patriarch, the story goes, asks him, "Where are you from?" The sixth patriarch says, "I am a man from south of the peaks." The fifth patriarch says, "What do you want to get by coming here?" The sixth patriarch says, "I want to become Buddha." The fifth patriarch says, "A man from south of the peaks is without the Buddha nature. How can you expect to become Buddha?" These words, "a man from south of the peaks is without the Buddha nature," do not mean that a man from south of the peaks does not have the Buddha nature, and do not mean that a man from south of the peaks has the Buddha nature. They mean that a man from south of the peaks, being without, is the Buddha nature. How can you expect to become Buddha means, what kind of becoming Buddha are you expecting? Generally, the past masters who have clarified the truth of the Buddha nature are few. It is beyond the various teachings of the Agama Sutras, and it cannot be known by teachers of sutras and commentaries. It is transmitted one-to-one by none other than the descendants of the Buddhist patriarch. The truth of the Buddha nature is that we are not equipped with the Buddha nature before we realize the state of Buddha. We are equipped with it following the realization of the state of Buddha. The Buddha nature and realization of Buddha inevitably experience the same state together. We should thoroughly investigate and consider this truth. We should consider it and learn it in practice for 30 years or 20 years. It is not understood by bodhisattvas in the 10 sacred stages or the 3 clever stages. To say living beings have the Buddha nature or living beings are without the Buddha nature is this truth. To learn in practice that the Buddha nature is something which is present following realization of Buddha is accurate and true. Teaching which is not learned like this is not the Buddha Dharma. Without being learned like this, the Buddha Dharma could not have reached us today. Without clarifying this truth, we neither clarify nor see and hear the realization of Buddha. This is why the fifth patriarch, in teaching the other, tells him, people from the south of the peaks being without are the Buddha nature. When we first meet Buddha and hear the Dharma, the teaching that is difficult to get and difficult to hear is living beings being without are the Buddha nature. In sometimes following good counselors and sometimes following the sutras, what we should be glad to hear is living beings being without are the Buddha nature. Those who are not satisfied in seeing, hearing, realizing, and knowing that all living beings, being without, are the Buddha nature, have never seen, heard, realized, or known the Buddha nature. When the sixth patriarch earnestly seeks to become Buddha, the fifth patriarch is able to make the sixth patriarch become Buddha without any other expression and without any other skillful means, just by saying, "A man from south of the peaks, being without, is the Buddha nature." Remember, saying and hearing the words, "being without the Buddha nature," is the direct path to becoming Buddha. In sum, just at the moment of being without the Buddha nature, we become Buddha at once. Those who have neither seen and heard nor expressed being without the Buddha nature have not become Buddha. The sixth patriarch says, "People have south and north, but the Buddha nature is without south and north." We should take this expression and make effort to get inside the words. We should reflect on the words south and north with naked mind. The words of the sixth patriarch's expression of the truth have meaning in them. They include a point of view that people become Buddha, but the Buddha nature cannot become Buddha. Does the sixth patriarch recognize this or not? Receiving a fraction of the superlative power of restriction present in the expression of the truth, being without the Buddha nature, as expressed by the fourth patriarch and the fifth patriarch, Kasyapa Buddha and Shakyamuni Buddha and other Buddhas possess the ability in becoming Buddha and in preaching Dharma to express totally having the Buddha nature. How could the having or of totally having How could the having of totally having not receive the Dharma from the being without, in which there is no being without? So the words "being without the Buddha nature" can be heard coming from the distant rooms of the fourth patriarch and the fifth patriarch. At this time, if the sixth patriarch were a person of the fact, he would strive to consider these words being without the Buddha nature. Setting aside for a while the being without of having and being without, he should ask, just what is the Buddha nature? He should inquire, what concrete thing is the Buddha nature? People today also, when they have heard of the Buddha nature, do not ask further, what is Buddha nature? They seem only to discuss the meaning of the Buddha nature's existence, non-existence, and so on. This is too hasty. In sum, the being without, which belongs to various denials of existence, should be studied under the being without of being without the Buddha nature. We should sift through 2 times and 3 times for long ages the sixth patriarch's words, "People have north and south, but the Buddha nature is without south and north." Power may be present just in the sieve. Master Dōgen affirmed the means, not only the end. I thought that was a lovely expression. Power may be present just in the sieve. We should quietly take up and let go of the sixth patriarch's words, "People have south and north, but the Buddha nature is without south and north." Stupid people think the human world has south and north because it is hindered by physical substance, whereas the Buddha nature, being void and dissolute, is beyond discussion of south and north. Those who guess that the sixth patriarch said this may be powerless dimwits. Casting aside this wrong understanding, we should directly proceed with diligent practice. Okay. The sixth patriarch preaches to disciple Gyosho that without constancy is the Buddha nature. I'll say that again. That without constancy is the Buddha nature. That which has constancy is the mind that divides all dharmas into good and bad. That without constancy, expressed by the sixth patriarch, is beyond the supposition of non-Buddhists, the 2 vehicles, and the like. Founding patriarchs and latest offshoots among non-Buddhists and the 2 vehicles are without constancy, though they cannot perfectly realize it. Thus, when that without constancy itself preaches, practices, and experiences that without constancy, all may be that without constancy. If people can now be saved by the manifestation of our own body, we manifest at once our own body and preach for them the Dharma. This is the Buddha nature. Further, it may be sometimes the manifestation of a long Dharma body and sometimes the manifestation of a short Dharma body. Everyday saints are that without constancy, and everyday commoners are that without constancy. The idea that everyday commoners and saints cannot be the Buddha nature may be a stupid view of small thinking and a narrow view of the intellect. Buddha is a bit of body, and nature is a bit of action. On this basis, the sixth patriarch says that without constancy is the Buddha nature. The constant is the unchanging. The meaning of the unchanging is as follows. Even though we turn it into the separating subject and transform it into the separated object, because it is not necessarily connected with the traces of living and coming, it is the constant. In sum, that without constancy of grass, trees and forests is just the Buddha nature, and that without constancy of the body and mind of a human being is the Buddha nature itself. National lands and mountains and rivers are that without constancy, because they are the Buddha nature. The truth of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, because it is the Buddha nature, is that without constancy. The great state of Parinirvana, because it is that without constancy, is the Buddha nature. The various people of small views of the two vehicles, together with scholars of the Tripitaka who teach sutras and commentaries and the like, might be astonished, doubting and afraid at these words of the sixth patriarch. If they are astonished or doubting, they are demons and non-Buddhists. You don't want to be one of those, do you? Thank you for listening.